Well, one of, if not the most anticipated attraction coming to Epic Universe is the Battle at the Ministry ride that is going to be in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. And just the other day, Universal released some sneak peeks in terms of some photos of the queue, basically, but they looked fantastic from those photos that they showed. And now we have some more details coming out about the Battle at the Ministry from the Discover Universal podcast. Now, I know, and I've said this before, this podcast is a little cringy, but they do have some good information on here, so I haven't watched this yet. So we're just going to watch through this, give some thoughts on it as we go along, and I will fast forward through many of the cringy elements of the show to try and just get to the point where they're talking about the ride itself from the people that helped worked on it. So that's one reason why I do like, watching these, is because they do bring on the part of the people from the creative team that have been part of working on different aspects of Epic Universe, so we can glean some knowledge and info from that. So that's what we're going to do today. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic, and we will just get right into this. So I'm just going to fast forward to the part where the creative people come on and talk about this, because the first part of this was just them talking about which houses they think they would be a part of. So we'll just get right into this.
Well, today we have someone super special here who's on the team for this amazing new attraction that we're opening up here at Universal Epic Universe. Kim, do you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Kim Greitzer, and I am the creative director for Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry.
Ooh,
okay.
Excellent. Yeah. How long have you been with Universal for?
8 years.
Okay, so have you worked on any of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter attractions?
Yes, I was the art director for Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure.
Nice.
Well, good.
That's a good person to have in charge of this ride. I think out of all of the attractions in the Wizarding Worlds, I think Hagrid's is probably, I would assume, most people's favorite and a very well done attraction. So that's a good thing to hear.
Great work.
Yeah, we rode that yesterday, right?
We did. And every single time I feel like I personally go on it, it's just like the first time again. It's absolutely fantastic. So wonderful job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a phenomenal attraction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to the sidecar. I appreciate it. That's my favorite.
Yes, I love the bike. I mean, they're both pretty awesome, but the car in general is just absolutely amazing. But Kim, we were taking some bets earlier about which Hogwarts house you are a part of. Which one are you in?
Slytherin.
Okay.
That was not what I guessed.
I told you. I told you not to forget about Slytherin.
I guess Ravenclaw.
Slytherin has some really great qualities.
They do.
Ambition, cunning.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I wish I was, but, Gryffindor's got me.
Yeah.
Sorting hat. You can't go against Slytherin.
I feel like we all kind of wish we were a part of Slytherin deep down.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. So today we're talking about Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. Can you describe from start to finish what this experience is like? Like, what is the ride vehicle like? All those details.
You guys sent me that question, and it gave me a little bit of anxiety because I have never been able to describe the attraction in a short amount of time. But I can definitely...
I got time.
I can give you the highlights.
I got time.
Perfect.
So there's... we're going to start off in the load station. The queue, we'll just call it the first half of the Ministry. So the entire attraction takes place in the Ministry of Magic. The queue is phenomenal, and we can get into that a little later. But after you go through the queue, you descend these stairs into this really unique kind of tall space, which is the lift lobby. And it's very representative of what you see in the film. So when you see them go to the lift lobby and then get on their lifts, that's what we've built for our load station. And it's this multi-leveled rotunda surrounded by all of these lift bays, which is super cool. And then you are guided into one of 4 lift bays, and that's when you are ushered onto your lift. So your lift is meant to take you to the trial of Dolores Umbridge. So that's going to transport you to the courtrooms. And it's very special. It's designed after the lifts that you see in the film. So it's got this like beautiful brass.
I mean, we had another video talking about this, but these, first off, they look great, but they do give off a Tower of Terror vibe, which I think it looks really good. I think it fits exactly what the Harry Potter, the Ministry of Magic stuff is. And I saw some people asking, and I am curious about if these are speakers or not. So like there's some little circles all over. It's hard to see in this photo. I'm going to assume those are speakers. Some people were wondering if they were other elements or like cameras or something like that, but I would assume those are speakers in there.
Paneling. But it's it's very unique. Our lift is unique. First of all, it's a lot bigger. It seats 14 people.
Awesome.
So it's a little roomier.
14 people. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot more people than I thought it would be in each lift. So
than what you see in the films. And there are seats, and the seats are very comfy and elegant and stylish. It gave it this really unique kind of private mini theater quality. So you sit in the lift, and when we sat in it for the first time in what we call our Article 1 mock-up, we just felt like, oh my God, we are ready for a show.
And it felt right.
And it felt right.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is awesome. So it's just it's an absolutely gorgeous ride vehicle. There's also a lot of cool lighting features in it. So there's a lift shaft map, which is kind of modeled after the London Underground subway maps.
Cool.
And it has these pathways and locations that light up on your journey. So you'll get to see that as you travel through the ministry.
Awesome.
I am curious. They talk about going into the courtroom. I'm curious how they're going to do that. I'm going to assume that is going to be screen-based. And a lot of people have talked about, Universal is known for a lot of these screen-based simulators. And I think with Epic Universe, they're definitely getting away from that. Not that they'll never do screens, but I think they're going to, they're doing a lot more animatronics. And you look at the Monsters Unchained, Frankenstein's Experiment, that's got a lot of animatronics. But I'm assuming like this courtroom scene here and things like that, this will be screen-based or some, they've used that sort of that projection technology to make things look like three-dimensional. In certain, pre-shows and things like that. So I am curious how they're going to execute that. But we do know the actress that played Dolores Umbridge has filmed scenes for this. So it is going to be screen-based on, at least some level or many levels. I'm just curious exactly how much of that is in here with. So I'm just curious exactly. Like I'm assuming most of this ride is going to be screen-based. I haven't heard him say anything else about animatronics and things, but maybe she'll talk about that more in a minute.
So cool. Well, I feel like we were talking about this premiere video for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Ministry of Magic, and we saw a little bit of a preview of this attraction and just seeing those lifts go up and down all around. I mean, we were like, how in the world is this going to happen? So thank you for shedding some light on that.
Yeah.
And, the cool thing about all of the attractions within the Wizarding World of Harry Potter as well is they're all very deeply story-based. Of course, they are inspired by these films that we know and love. Yeah. And so we have to ask you about some of these characters that we're going to see in the attraction. Who can we expect to come across?
Well, you will see Harry, Ron, and Hermione, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
That we lovingly refer to as the trio.
Yep.
And then you will see Higgledy. And Higgledy, we are introducing Higgledy. She's a brand new character. She is Dolores Umbridge's former house elf.
Okay.
And she is very happy that Umbridge is on trial today because she was, as you can imagine, very mistreated by Umbridge. She's an absolutely sweet, charming, brave house elf. And you get to know her throughout the attraction, and you also get to know her in the queue. And then there are Death Eaters. So we've got a few.
Now that is an animatronic. I do know that. So there will be, we do know there will be some animatronics. I'm just very curious about the mix between that and the screens.
Death Eaters around.
Nice.
Which, by the way, that animatronic looks just as good as the ones in Dark Universe. So
Kingsley Shacklebolt, you will see, who is the Minister for Magic at this time. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Dolores Umbridge herself.
So it sounds like you described a lot of characters. Would you be against giving us a full in-depth of the story of this entire thing?
The story of the attraction is that Dolores Umbridge is on trial for her crimes against the Wizarding World. And she's she's a very hateful person, as we know.
Too many rules.
Yeah, but her general crimes is that she sent Muggles to Azkaban for no reason. And that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So she's on trial. And that's a big deal in the ministry. So we all are going to witness the trial. So we get on our lifts, and then we travel through the lift shafts, and we get this really beautiful view of the vastness of the ministry. So it's a lot of activity, lots of people going. we run into Harry, Ron, and Hermione, who are traveling to the trial. And everything's generally fine until it's not. And when we hear an explosion and we happen to turn and run right into a Death Eater who has broken into the lift that is transporting Umbridge. And she escapes in a plume of pink smoke right in front of us.
Of course it would be.
Right?
Of course.
Yes. Then we get blasted, we fall through the lift shafts, and then we almost collide with Harry, Ron, and Hermione again.
Let's fall through the lift shaft, so it seems like there will be some sort of drop element to this ride. Now, this isn't, like I said earlier, this, it looked the interior like Tower of Terror. This isn't like Tower of Terror in terms of the big drop that you see in that ride, I don't believe, but it does seem like there's going to be some sort of drop element to this from what she's saying here.
Again, and then they recruit us to find and stop Umbridge before she gets her hands on a time turner. Because what she wants to do is get back to the time of Lord Voldemort when things were generally better for her.
Right.
Makes sense.
Not
Yeah.
as good for everyone else.
Yeah.
No.
So
No.
we don't
awesome.
want that.
So then it's like a literal chasing Umbridge through the Ministry. And we get to go to all of these new departments and spaces in the Ministry that we've never seen before in the films, which was very exciting for us to create. There's the Magical Archives, for example, which is this cavernous library with like towering cabinets and piles of paper stacks. And then there's a Death Eater battle that is going on there, and we are right smack dab in the middle of it. And so we get to see our heroes engaged in a Death Eater battle, and then we get attacked by Death Eaters. So we're very much involved in this whole adventure. We get to go to the Department of Magical Creatures, and because of the chaos, all of the creatures are stampeding, running amok. And then...
So that's how they're sort of tying this into, so if you don't know, the Ministry of Magic land is based off of Fantastic Beast. This ride, Battle at the Ministry, is based in 1990s, like the original Harry Potter series, but it seems like they're using elements with Fantastic Beasts or magical creatures as part of this ride to sort of tie those things together a little bit. That would be my guess as to how they sort of tie it in to the land, given that the ride is going to be so much different from the land itself.
We may happen to travel into some very restricted areas of the Ministry. And, Umbridge may or may not get her hands on a time turner and misuse it.
Of course.
Oh,
Interesting. You can tell and they've been very tight-lipped about this ride. I mean, you can tell she's being very careful about what she's revealing. And this ride, I mean, I don't know how much they're going to go on about this, but this is, a lot of people have talked about, they're using multiple manufacturers for this ride. It's potentially the most ambitious ride perhaps ever created, for sure the most ambitious ride by Universal. So you look at the size of the show building and everything, this does seem like it's going to be a very intricate ride with lots of different elements to it. So all the stuff she's talking about here, it makes me wonder, how long is this ride? I don't know if she'll talk about that, but I've had questions about, how, I don't imagine it's going to be short given how many different things, and it seems like the story you're going on, that it's not going to be a really quick ride necessarily.
Look,
And then I can't tell you what happens. You're
I feel that you want to. I can feel that. I feel like
I
you
can't tell you what happens when there's time turner chaos, but you're going to know.
Okay.
I mean, I do like, time travel, Back to the Future. I'm a fan of that and things. So this ride seems really cool.
Boy, I can only imagine. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And how long did this so that's really complex. How long did it take to come up with all this material? What is the process like to craft this story?
And it's many, many, many years of development and
Years.
yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. And it starts off with a lot of story iteration, and then looking at what the experience is going to be. And so you have you propose a bunch of different storylines and places you want to go, and then that just kind of continues to solidify and evolve over time. And we work with Warner Brothers and TBP, our partners, to really help make sure that we're in line with the stories that we want to tell, especially in Harry Potter. So just, lots of story, not only story iterations, but design, like ride system iterations. Like first you kind of think about the experience you want. So, I mean, the Ministry of Magic really has been on our minds for a while. I mean, that's a location that everybody wants to visit. And then when you
I mean, this type of ride, at least something to do with the Battle at the Ministry, was rumored, and I think at one point it was close to being going in right next to Diagon Alley and that space there where you've got like Fear Factor building and all that stuff over there. It was rumored to go over there until they announced Epic Universe, and then they decided to put it over there. Similar story with like Super Nintendo World, as that was going to be a land inside the existing parks, and then with Epic Universe they put it in there to have a lot more space and everything like that. So this is a ride and something people have wanted for a long time, ever since especially the movies where it showed the Ministry of Magic.
You think of traveling in the Ministry, it was pretty logical that the lift system, those elevators, the kind of what you see in the films, the really fun, wild motion, like what can you do with that? Like there's so much. And so we went through several systems on how to get there. But it just takes a lot of time and change, and
you probably had 1,000 versions of different stories
versions of stories, and then once you get there, it is it's pretty cool, and then it just defines the whole experience. So, and then you have to do things like mock-ups, right? So you come up with a scene, and then you're like, all of these things are going to work together in this way. And then you have to see it physically and do what you can to make sure that what you're thinking about is actually going to work. And so thousands of hours of mock-ups as well. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, and I feel like thinking about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, these characters, again, going back to that, the way that they're brought to life in these attractions, it's so diverse. And so can you give us a tease at all about how these characters are going to be visualized? I know we have a lot of animated figures that we see at different attractions. Are you able to tease a little bit about how we'll see them?
Sure. You will see them in a few ways. So they are in the media, and they will also be physical as well.
Well, tell us about the queue.
So that's about what I guess there. So what she means by media is like video or like screens. But animatronics, I'm curious now, the Death Eaters, we know those are animatronic. I'm betting or wondering, I mean, if you're going to see like, Harry, Ron, and Hermione animatronics perhaps, or maybe Dolores Umbridge. So it seems like even this ride here is going to be a mix of screens and, live action set pieces, which again, I think is something that's really good for Universal because, if you looked historically at Universal, a lot of screen-based attractions, and some of them are done very, very well. I mean, Spider-Man is still one of the best rides out there, and that is over 20 years old, and I think it stood the test of time really well, but that is one of the complaints that people have. But with Epic Universe, they have a lot more space, a bigger budget, so it seems like this ride is in line with the other ones that we've seen where it's, likely the same thing with Frankenstein's Experiment, where it's a mix of screens and live action set pieces with animatronics. How many? I don't know. They're not really saying in here, but given the scale of this ride, I'm wondering if there's more than maybe what people are anticipating in terms of the amount of animatronics, or maybe how advanced and the different things that they do. So we've seen a sneak peek at the ones in the Dark Universe that look fantastic. We've seen that one snippet here of the Death Eater one, but I have a feeling there may be a lot more with this ride than they're letting on, at least right now.
Too, you kind of teased a little bit about that, but what can we experience? Again, watching that preview video, I mean, lots of beautiful green, lots of just amazing tall ceilings, and what again can we see walking through that queue before we get to the attraction?
The Ministry is such a beautiful, grand space. So one of the things we really wanted to capture was when Harry he descends from the phone booth and he steps out into the Ministry, and his jaw just drops, and that is what we wanted to capture. And so you will be able to see the ministry fully built to scale, the flue corridor and the atrium, and you'll be completely immersed in that. Now,
I mean, from the pictures they released, which we had a video on it a couple days ago, showing the pictures that they, sneak peek at the atrium and things like that. It seems to me that that's exactly what they pulled off, because it is at scale. It is massive in there. And again, if you look at the show building compared to the rest of the land, I mean, the show building is almost as big as the entire land itself. And that land is not small. So they're definitely going above and beyond in terms of, what they've done in the past with Universal. They've had some great attractions, but this one seems like it is going to be on another level just on the scale of it alone.
Ministry in the films expands and expands. It seemingly goes on forever. And we found ways to create that illusion that there is this expansiveness up and then out of the ministry. The queue starts off in the Metro Flu, and it is a way of mass transit for wizards and everyone throughout the wizarding world. When you flew in the wizarding world, you step into a fireplace, and then you are engulfed in green flames and smoke, and then you are magically transported. So we actually get to do this in our attraction and in the queue. And so you go into the Paris Metro Flu, and then you queue for a little bit, and then you turn the corner and you see this row of 5 gorgeous, huge fireplaces. And then you are ushered into one of the 5 fireplaces. And then the minute that you step in, you're immediately surrounded with this blast of green smoke. I did the mock-up for the first time. And when I stepped through, I couldn't stop laughing. And one of my colleagues said, Kim disappeared. And then you could just hear me laughing. And I walked out, and I'm like, that was the best. That was the best. People are going to love it. It's a bit of a little tunnel journey. And then you actually experience that effect again right before you step into the beautiful flue corridor of the ministry.
So you get it.
So I've been curious how they're going to do that effect of walking through the Metro Flues there. So one word stuck out to me where she said smoke, and I think they'll use a mix of obviously lighting and some sort of other effects, but smoke seems to be the thing that they're going to use to basically engulf you, it would seem. Again, I'm curious how it's going to be pulled off, what it's going to look like from the outside looking in, and what it's going to look like, be like, yourself walking through it. But that is one thing. Given that there are multiple of these, a lot of people talked about the fact that this is such a complex ride, and is this ride going to have potential issues? Because we look at, Hagrid's had its issues on opening day. It has, every ride has its issues on some level. You look at Disney World with Rise of the Resistance. That is a fantastic ride, but that one is a very complicated ride that has a lot of different aspects of that ride that have had issues. So that is a question that I do have about this attraction in terms of when it's running at 100% and everything's working great. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic ride, but these little elements here, do they have issues? Do they continue going? Because, as time goes on, things can break. They may not be maintained. They may not want to mess with it. So I am curious and hopeful that this stuff will all work seamlessly and been tested out and things like that. But these little elements here, while small, I do love the fact that Universal is paying attention to them. Because again, they could they wouldn't have to do this. I mean, you could just walk into the atrium there and it would still be amazing for people. But the fact that they're doing that extra step of wanting to simulate the Metro Flues, network and have these elements like this, I really do appreciate them going above and beyond, which it seems like they're doing in all aspects of Epic Universe. But I do wonder on the maybe maintenance side of things or the longevity side, hopefully these things have been thought out and that they, don't have potential issues down the road. But that's something that, obviously we'll have to wait and see how that ends up going as time goes on.
Twice.
You get it twice.
Oh,
I'm down.
perfect.
Twice.
So I don't have
And then
to
when
do
you
it over
exit,
and over.
yeah.
And if you missed that, she said you go through a Metro Flu twice. So, again, above and beyond, I think that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Obviously, one of the defining factors of the Ministry of Magic is the color and the scale of that room, and like how that all works. What was it like? This sounds weird. What was it like picking out the tiles?
It was very interesting, and it was it was hard work actually, because we had to go to Leavesden. So in Leavesden, in the studio tour, they did build part of the Ministry. They had it from the original sets. So we originally went there and compared color, grabbed color swatches, and started from there. And so we did a lot of samples and research on how to get that same color. And it's not just green, there's a gradient to that color. So it was all about like, which way does the gradient go? How much of it do we have? And that was a lot of research, but it was absolutely worth it.
It's a weird thing to nerd out about, but I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
So some people have commented that obviously, working with Warner Brothers here, they have the Harry Potter stuff over in England, and they have the sets. I believe now is an attraction. You can go through, you can take a tour of them, but going over there and, looking at the actual set piece from the movies is, hopefully going to translate over to basically like you're walking into a scene from the movies, which again, they've done very well with the other the other Wizarding Worlds. You look at Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. I mean, those are some of the best ones I've seen in a theme park, where it's a scene or parts from a movie that you are able to walk in and experience firsthand. And so I don't have any doubt they're going to be able to pull this off. I think the scale, more than likely from what I'm seeing and hearing, is something that's going to blow like most people away in terms of like just the scale of this building and the attraction itself.
Do you know how many tiles you all used?
I do. I cannot remember, but we did the calculation. Yes, there's a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Yeah. As we can tell again from that video, you can kind of see some of the detail there inside of it.
Because you were saying earlier that it's the largest to scale that's ever been done, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I would imagine that's a ton of tiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it means largest to scale for Universal or maybe any theme park, but for sure Universal. I have no doubt about that. But I am curious where, in terms of how it ranks, worldwide, which I would assume if it's not number one, it's got to be up there in terms of just the scale of the building.
And I mean, it's not just the Flue corridor and the atrium. There's so many different rooms and departments that you go through in the queue in the Ministry. And so some that you have seen in the films, like the typing pool, but some that we have created, which are super cool. But then the tile also changes color throughout. So at first it's green, then it goes to purple, and then once you get to Dolores Umbridge's office, it then becomes this sickly pink.
Oh, of course. Well, why not? Why not? Okay.
Of course. Are there cats in her office?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. We're excited. Michelle's clapping
excited.
her hands
Yeah.
over here. We're
Loves cats.
looking forward to the cats.
Yeah,
That's
I'm a
awesome.
dog guy. Dog guy. Fluffy.
Yes.
Fluffy all day.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, you mentioned too, this attraction is family friendly. So do you have any stats in terms of just height requirements? Is there child swap? What can families look forward to?
Yes, the minimum height requirement is 40 inches. And there is
40 inches is pretty low. So it does seem like it. And again, a lot of the attractions we're seeing at Epic Universe are much more family friendly in terms of, the amount of kids that can ride things and more family stuff. So this one definitely seems to be into that category as well.
is child swap for sure, and that it's also ADA accessible.
So is there anything else in terms of just developing this ride you did for research or planning or creation that you feel like fans would be super excited to hear about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we do, in our attraction, there's a mixture of physical and media. And for the media, we did do a film shoot at Leavesden Studios, which was extremely exciting. And then we had Dame Imelda Staunton, who is the character of Dolores Umbridge, participate. And it was just a phenomenal experience. She was so excited to be Umbridge again. And when we pitched her the idea, she just was like, "Oh, this is amazing. I love this." She was so professional and kind, and she absolutely understood the scenes. And in fact, she even kind of brought more to it and had a lot of suggestions about what Dolores Umbridge would do in the situations. And she ad-libbed some lines, and of course we kept them because they were perfect.
Yeah.
So it was just a really great experience. Like, she doesn't need to be directed on how to be Dolores Umbridge. And it's funny because she really is this incredibly kind, sweet person. And then to see that transformation from this sweet person to this like really sadistic, evil person was just amazing to see.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I have to know too, after working on both of these attractions now within the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, are you still like shocked, surprised? Is it still a pinch me moment? Because I feel like doing all of these different activities in the development phase, I'd be like on the floor passing out from all this stuff. It's so
I feel
cool.
like that just riding the rides.
Yeah.
Just that is enough. So
When you're in it, you're doing the work and you're just like, I'm just doing the work, and you're just creating the best thing that you can possibly create, and you just kind of keep your head down and keep going. But then the moment that you see other people experiencing it and the joy that you see on their faces, that's when it turns, and you're like, this is amazing. And then to bring your friends and family and just experience the joy, there's nothing like it.
I can only imagine.
That's
man.
wild to see
That's so
something that you've put so much planning into, and then see people get to experience that for the first time. It's almost like you get to experience that for the first time with them.
Oh yeah.
Again, we're just so excited to see that come together, and it looks absolutely incredible. I know this is one of the attractions I'm most looking forward to at Universal Epic Universe. But Kim, we have to do some rapid fire with you. Are you ready to go through a couple quick questions that we have for you over the attraction?
Yes, I'll do my best.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
So what is your favorite part of this attraction?
The Rumpant, which I can't talk about.
Talk about. Understandable.
Yeah. Is that also what stands out to you the most, or is there a visual element that really sticks out to you?
Yes, that is what stands out to me the most. But I think generally the environments overall, they're absolutely beautiful and massive and detailed.
What is the thing
I believe the Rumpant, from what some people had commented, is like the rhino-looking thing from Magical Beast. I believe that's what that is. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but I think that's what she's talking about there.
you're most excited about for guests to see?
The new spaces in the Ministry.
Okay.
And again, just how amazing they are, but also the characters, and especially like the Death Eaters are also very phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the Rumpant again. And that too.
Yes, and the
that's
Rumpant.
the big
This
secret.
is very hard, and I saw that when you're like, "What's the most exciting part?" I'm like, I don't know, you
All
guys.
of it.
It's
All
just
of it.
it's amazing.
I know. I
Yeah.
feel like our heads, like going
Yeah.
into this conversation, we're just like, we have so many questions. Like, we're looking forward to so many things.
Yeah.
So it's going to be incredible. Well, speaking of guests too, who is this attraction for? Who can ride it? Who's going to enjoy it the most?
Mostly everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Family friendly.
It's family friendly.
We love that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Kim, it was really awesome having you here, and you telling us all the tea, if you will. And on behalf of the Discover Universal podcast, we want to say thank you for all the work that you've done, because
Yes.
we're super excited to see it.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well done.
I'm very excited for everyone to experience this. It's something that I think Universal will be very, very proud of.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we'll have to go in 2025 and maybe ride with you.
Oh.
What do you say?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
I'm in.
We'll make
Okay,
sure we're
sweet.
there. Opening
We'll
day.
save the date.
I'll point out all the details and
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's going to even expand our knowledge even further. We need
Exactly.
that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim, for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I think out of all the ones they've done, that one perhaps was some of the more informative one that they've done. So obviously they've been very tight-lipped about this ride. So there are a lot of details that she did sort of talk about there in terms of the 40 inches tall. I'm pretty surprised by that. So it seems to be, and she said very, all ages, very family friendly. So I imagine it's not going to be, we talked about, they said like a little bit of a drop. I don't imagine it's going to be too much there if you're talking about, the height requirement and the family-friendly aspect to it. So the fact that it has broad appeal, I think, is something that will probably help this attraction in terms of, getting families and obviously families with young kids coming to Epic Universe and to check out this ride. The mix of what she said, media and like video and, animatronics, I am curious about that mix and like what that looks like. Because obviously you look at the Harry Potter rides. I mean, Hagrid's has real set pieces, but those aren't, you're on a motorcycle going by them. They're good, but they're not necessarily something you're sitting and looking at for a long period of time. When you talk about Forbidden Journey, obviously that is, there are set pieces there, but for the most part, when you're interacting with Harry, Ron, or Hermione, you're on a screen that's being, on the Kuka arm thing. And then at Gringotts, I mean, it's mostly screen there in the queue. It's got some more, actual set pieces there and things like that. So I am curious as to what that's going to look like. And just the level, the scale, the detail of it. I mean, again, the sneak peek of the pictures that they showed, I mean, the sheer scale and massive, atrium that it's in looks insanely impressive right off the bat there. So I don't think they're probably going to show many snippets of the ride itself. Maybe they will. I mean, they're obviously, leading out more information going into the end of the year here. So I am curious of how much they're going to show as we get closer to May when the park opens. I'm also curious about the ride time and just, obviously they're not going to go into this, but the ride vehicle system, this is something that's been rumored for a long period of time. Alicia Stella has had some articles and videos talking about the different type of ride systems that they initially perhaps were going to use. And what I had heard, I think the last thing that she had said about it was it's the same or very similar ride vehicles to what they use on Spider-Man and Transformers, but those can go much higher than what they do in those rides. So this may be, I think that's what she had said the last time. If I'm wrong on that, let me know, but that's what I had read at one point, that may be the ride vehicle that they use to simulate the elevator. Because at one point, I believe they had a pulley system they were going to look at being used in this ride. And so, curious about that end. And again, just the complexity of this ride and just really, hopefully it's a reliable ride. Again, I have no doubt about it being state of the art. I have no doubt about it being the scale and the immersion that they're going to do. But I think there's a lot of questions around. Hopefully this ride doesn't have issues. If you look at Rise of the Resistance at Disney World, that one has had tons of issues for different reasons. And they've got, a lot of times you ride that is in B mode or C mode in terms of a lot of the things aren't necessarily working when you're riding it. Hopefully this one doesn't have it. But again, on opening day, I'm telling people don't expect everything to go perfect. I know Universal, I'm sure they're doing tons of ride testing, and as much ride testing as we have seen going on in the outdoor attractions at Epic Universe, I'm assuming this ride here is going through ride testing continually. If you look at the pictures in the atrium, I mean, it looks done. So I'm assuming this ride is probably at the same level perhaps as the other rides where all those are basically completed. You just can't see inside the building to know if they're being ride tested. So hopefully they go through plenty of ride testing. You have the soft openings, AP previews, whatever those are, that are able to work out the kinks or hopefully run through, get its paces in there and make sure that it can stand, the amount of people coming into it. Obviously, you're not going to get the sheer amount of people through this ride until opening day, as I'm sure that will be the busiest it will perhaps ever been up until that point. But either way, this was a solid episode. This is the first time they ever had one person on. Usually they have a couple people talking about it. And the fact that she has worked on Hagrid's, is there other rides she worked on? That's a pretty good resume thing to point out right there of having worked on Hagrid. So I think that gives me a lot of confidence. Not that I wasn't confident in this ride already, but it does give me a lot of confidence in terms of the level of this ride if she was working on that one. And obviously that is one of the best coasters. I think most people would say either one of, if not the best coaster, at least in Florida and all of Orlando. It's definitely up there. So obviously a lot of hype for this ride. We get a little bit more details here, and we'll have to wait and see if they reveal anything else before the park opens. But that's going to be it though for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about what they revealed here about the battle at the Ministry, and what questions do you have about this ride? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.